Then from the grave he rose in power. The darkness broke that holy hour. The stone rolled back, the victory won. Behold the risen, reigning Son. No scheme of man, no force of hell can break the truth His word will tell, till He returns or calls me home. My life is safely held in Him. So I will stand in Christ alone, my solid rock, my anchor strong. Through every trial, through every tear, His faithful presence drawing near. And when I face my final breath, I'll rest secure beyond the grave. For Christ has claimed my soul as His and leads me on to endless days. In Christ my hope is found alone. My light, my strength, my cornerstone. Through every storm, through darkest night, His word remains my guiding light. No fear of death, no weight of sin can hold me captive deep within. For by His grace I stand redeemed, a child of God, forever free. Upon the cross where mercy bled, the spotless Lamb bowed down His head. The wrath once held for all my wrong was satisfied in love so strong. The veil was torn, the way made clear. No longer bound by guilt or fear, for Jesus bore my every shame and called me now to bear His name. Then from the grave He rose in power. The darkness broke that holy hour. The stone rolled back, the victory won. Behold the risen, reigning Son. No scheme of man, of hell can break the truth His word will tell, till He returns or calls me home. My life is safely held in Him, so I will stand in Christ alone. My solid rock, my anchor strong. Through every trial, through every tear, His faithful presence draws.
Maranatha, everyone. So glad that you could join us today on our prophecy update. As you can see, I have a special guest in the studio today. And before we get into our subject matter, as you can probably tell, it's going to be a lot about Israel. But I just want to remind you guys of a few things. If you missed our prophecy conference we did, those messages are all available. If you're interested in listening to what Lee Brainerd and Kurt Reed, and of course our Q&A that we did with Vindog, those are available on our YouTube channel and our app and website as standalone messages, so you can like and share all of those with your people. And just another reminder that on September 13th, our normal church service, Pastor Billy Crone will be joining us from Get a Life Church. We're excited to have him come on out. I am working on trying to get him here on Friday before that to do an update with us. I know he's a busy guy, so we'll see if that will come about. Also want to remind you guys about our emergency guide. Those are available for you if you would like them. I know some of you have reached out to us about, let me get one here. Where is it? Reached out to us about our emergency tracts. These are called Ready or Not. The digital version is available on our website, is also You can download it if you want to try to print them yourself. But to sell these things, we'd have to sell them at like about $1 a piece, which we think is a little too expensive. But that's the way it was for us to get them printed. But if you are a regular viewer here and you want some for your witnessing, just reach out to us. We have been blessed by provision to be able to provide for these things, and we're trying to get as many out as we think the rapture is going to happen at any moment. And then just to remind you guys of Mondays, every Monday at noon, we are live here at our office and also on YouTube and Facebook right now, and we're working on getting our connection to Rumble too, so we can start having these on all of our platforms. So we're working on that. We've got Michael, our tech guy over here, sitting in the corner over here, and he's been a big help and a blessing to us. So continue to pray as we want to expand this ministry. But as you can see, we have a special guest today. His name is Jacob Cohen. He's from a ministry called Israel Remnant Ministries. He's been a good friend for many, many years. And so, Jacob, just kind of give us a rundown of what your ministry is and what you're doing.
Yeah, basically, we teach the Jewish origins of the faith, that is to say, faith in Jesus. Mm-hmm. And everybody kind of knows that, at least in the background, some level, most people understand that Jesus was a Jew. All of the writers of the New Testament were Jews. They kind of have a sense of that, but we teach the Jewish origins of the faith. And we also reach out to Jewish people to tell them that Jesus is the true Jewish Messiah. Mm-hmm. And we teach believers in Jesus, mainly Gentiles, but Jewish people too, of course, who believe, how to share their faith with Jesus, how to do apologetics. So if they have Jewish friends, coworkers, neighbors, they can, once they get into conversation, they can kind of be familiar with what Judaism looks like today, and also be able to answer some questions, field some questions from them. So that's what we do.
Yep. And I know you do a lot of local stuff because you organized some of the pastors to come and meet with a local rabbi, and that was a real blessing to us. And I know that you're crossing a lot of borders that we can't cross between you and Stephanie.
And actually, actually, Stephanie's really good too. And Stephanie's a Puerto Rican chick from the Bronx, so she loves the Lord, and she's, sometimes she could say things and do things, say things that I can't, and sometimes I could say things that she can't. Just culturally speaking. So it's a good team. I tell people only God could put a Puerto Rican from the Bronx and a Jew from Brooklyn together and make it work for 44 years, whatever it is. 43, honey, 42, whatever. Yeah, 44 together,
If you guys, his website is Israel Remnant Ministries, and you can go there, and they can sign up for your newsletter on there, right?
Just drop us a note, and by all means.
Yeah. So, he puts out a monthly newsletter, and if you feel led by the Lord to maybe support him, he could use your support. I always think that it's always good to have local missionaries, and he is a local missionary. He's been working with the gospel for many years. You were a chaplain with the police or the sheriff's department up in El Dorado Hills, right?
El Dorado County, that's right. El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, that's right, yeah.
And of course, I met Jacob and Stephanie before I was even married. And this was when I was a brand new Christian. I got to go to Israel with him. With a good friend of ours, Pastor Jay McCarl. And Pastor Jay McCarl will be with us at our church service on November 1st. So if you're interested in hearing him, he's always a blessing. Or maybe if you're looking for a good place to go for an Israel trip, Biblical Dinners Israel Tour is coming up in November and December. And this is the same trip I went on 21 years ago with Jacob when I first met him, and Jay McCarl and Mark Bunger and of course people from Calvary Chapels. This is out, and I guess probably Ronnie will be your tour guide.
Yeah, Ronnie will be the tour guide.
Ronnie Cohen, great guy. Again, another New Yorker. He's you'll be very well educated, but you will also be entertained because he is just a great brother in the Lord. So.
Our goal, Stephanie and I lead this tour also. Our goal is to get you to speak in a Brooklyn accent or at least a New York City accent by the time you're through with this tour. So,
yeah, and I've got one of the flyers right here, and like I said, I put a link to it on our YouTube channel. So pray about it. If you're, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people offering Israel tours out there, and I know for a fact that this one will be a blessing to you if you're looking. Jay has been doing Israel tours for 30 years now?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And he is also an expert in Hebraic customs and manners. If you've ever seen the movie Before the Wrath, that is based on, Brent Miller Jr. was inspired by Pastor Jay and his biblical dinners that he did. And his Galilean weddings that he does at churches, that's what made Before the Wrath. And there's also a movie coming out, supposed to be out this fall. I've been in contact with Brent Miller Jr. Many of you guys know who he is in the prophecy circles. And his newest movie, Eating with the Enemy, based upon the biblical dinners, inspired by that, will be coming out soon. So again, if you're just something you're interested in, or you know somebody that's looking for a trip to Israel, you will definitely be blessed if you do that with Jacob and with Pastor Jay and all of those guys. So something to think about. So anyway, one of the reasons why I wanted to have Jacob on to do this guest is we want to start having more guests and start getting I value his opinions and the things that, his insight on a lot of things. So we'll get into a few news stories and kind of bounce that off of him. But we just started at our church a study through the book of John, verse by verse, through the book of John. And like I said on Sunday, John 1:1, that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And we talked about the implications of that, and how amazing that is. And of course, the Greek word logos, and we shared what Blue Letter Bible had to say about the logos, the Greek philosopher, and I still can't pronounce his name, even though Tori got on me about it, first used the term logos around 600 BC to designate the divine reason or plan which coordinates a changing universe. And of course, we talked a little bit about that, how many commentators and people believe that because it's written, he was reading with more of a Greek philosophy kind of context on the word logos. But in actuality, you know, John was a Jew, raised as a Jew, and more likely he was talking about the memra, and that's an Aramaic translation of the Hebrew duvar, which is logos in the Greek. And I wrote down some things. This came from Albert Frutenbaum, and he just kind of a short thing on the memra that I talked about, how it is the same as God, is involved in creation, is an agent of salvation, manifestation of God, and the signer of covenantal agreements, and of course the revealer of revelations. But there's much more to it. So I thought I would have Jacob kind of share a little bit about that with us before we move on to some stories. So,
yeah, and really historically, people got scholars got caught up in essence, and they thought that the John's logos is from the Greek philosophy, and then there was also a theory that there was a Jewish philosopher who was also a Greek philosopher, Philo, and he also, what he did was he took that same term logos, and logos in Greek philosophy is the reason of God and the expression of God. So they think that. Or historically, Christian theologians have thought that John was kind of combining Greek philosophy with Hebrew theology. The problem is that there is a theology of logos within Jewish circles, and this is totally apart from the Greek philosophy logos. And in Hebrew, it's called a memra, and which means word also, as Jed mentioned. And in Hebrew, there was something called a targumim. Targum is a Aramaic translation from the Hebrew to the Aramaic, and the word logos in Aramaic is memra. So what it looks like is that when John used the word logos, it was if he were writing in Aramaic, he would have said memra. but he was writing in Greek, so he used logos. And basically, the difference between the Greek philosophy, memra, or logos, I should say, including Philos, who's a Hebrew, who kind of tried to combine Hebrew theology with Greek philosophy. It was kind of an odd duck kind of thing. But the bottom line is that the Greek philosophy logos is not a person, he's impersonal. And the memra is personal. He's the the middle person of the triunity, right? And he is the logos, and he is the memra. So John was not speaking as a Greek philosopher. John was a Jewish fisherman, from the Galilee, and he didn't run around in circles of Alexandrian philosophers. He was just speaking about what was popular at that time, which was the memra of the Lord. And I mean, basically, it's the logos that John was speaking about. Any Jewish person at that time that would have read John or listened to someone speak about the logos would have immediately recognized that this is the memra that we already spoke about. And memra, God created the world through the memra, and only God can create. So God created the world. The memra is this. Now this is kind of weird because the rabbis would say, just blanket statement, the memra is distinct from God, a distinct person from God. At the same time, they called him God. So he was deity, distinct person from. They didn't explain it or anything. They just kind of laid it out there. And as we read John, these 6 items that Jed mentioned were listed in John, very first chapter of John. And as a matter of fact, just to give you an idea, these Targumims were paraphrased, kind of like an amplified version of your Bible. If you have an amplified version, it's almost like a running commentary, kind of like that. It's kind of expanding on the words, definitions. So just to give you an idea, this is from Targum, from one of the Targums in Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Right? That's from Hebrew to the English. But here, this is from the beginning with wisdom, the memra of the Lord created and perfected the heavens and the earth. So you can see the memra of the Lord, the word of the Lord. So you could see that idea was embedded in Jewish theology of John's time, and anyone who would have read John, now even if he was a Jewish person who never came to faith, he wouldn't have thought something like, what's he talking about? No, instead he would have thought, oh yeah, I'm tracking. I see. John is saying that the memra became flesh, and John is saying that this is the Messiah. So he would have really tracked with him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and like I was saying on Sunday, that we need to understand that the first century Jews, if they were educated, they would write in common Greek because that was what they did, but they spoke in Aramaic. That's why we see throughout the scripture Jesus using Aramaic to teach. So if Jesus was doing a commentary on Genesis 1, which we have no reason why he wouldn't commentate on the Bible to his disciples that may not be written in Scripture, he would have used the word memra because that's what they spoke.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
It's interesting that, and one of the reasons why I agree with his teaching on this more than I do some of the commentators that were leaning more towards Greek philosophy is because of the heresy of the Gnostics. That's what the Gnostics did. They were trying to combine philosophy and Christianity to create this, weird heresy. And I think John wouldn't have been, he was trying to fight against that through his prologue that we talked about, which we'll pick up some more. We're going to talk about the incarnation on Sunday. And so thank you. And there, on the YouTube video that I did on Sunday, in the comment section is a link to the teaching he did on the memra at our church a couple years ago. So we have to have you come back out and do that again. I think that would be really good. It's a really awesome teaching. And, it helps us when we look at the Bible through, a Hebraic lens, because the early church were all Jewish. And I think we lose a lot of that in, because Christianity has become, filled with Gentiles. And, even by the 4th to 6th century, most of the commentators, I have a whole set of books. Right. They are filled with Greek philosophy and interpreting the scriptures. And we want to get away from that because I don't think it's healthy. But anyway, I want to get Jacob's opinion on a few stories that are going through today, because, as you guys know, we are a big supporter of Israel, and I'd like to get some of his opinion on some of the things. And of course, the biggest one, of course, is anti-Semitism. I mean, it's just horrible right now. And this is, of course, just one report of many of them that they have. But I just want to read some statistics and then just kind of ask Jacob, what's it like to be a Jewish American in the days we're living in? And of course, 91% of American Jews say they feel less safe as a Jewish person in the United States due to violent attacks in the past year, including the burning of a Jewish governor's home, the firebombing of Jews in Boulder, Colorado, and the murders at the Capitol Jewish Museum. This is just last year, you guys. 78% of American Jews say they feel less safe as a Jewish person in the U.S. because of the October 7th, 2023 Hamas terrorist attacks. More than half, 55% of American Jews say they changed their behavior in the past year out of fear of anti-Semitism. 86% of American Jews say anti-Semitism has increased in the U.S. since the Hamas terrorist attack. Now, they say that, but that's actually true. Those are statistics that can be proven. Almost one-third, 31% of American Jews say they have been the personal target of anti-Semitism. 1 out of 3. Think about that. In person or virtually at least once over the last year. Now, I'm just a Christian Zionist, and we've had several really hard comments. I had a guy call me and leave a message with just long string of profanity and anger about us supporting Israel. It's happening to not just Jewish people, but people that support Israel now. The vast majority of U.S. Jews, 88%, express that seeing or hearing globalize the intifada right, would make them feel unsafe as a Jewish person in the U.S. to some degree, ranging from not too unsafe, 19%, to somewhat unsafe, 42%, to very unsafe, 27%. By comparison, just 12% of U.S. Jews say the phrase would not make them feel unsafe at all. American Jews are deeply concerned about social media and artificial intelligence, and we've shown you that here, how biased artificial intelligence is. And 73% of American Jews say they have experienced anti-Semitism online, either by seeing or hearing it or being personally targeted. For the first time, this number has risen above 7 in 10 in the history of AGC's State of Anti-Semitism in America report. 65% of American Jews say they are concerned that generative AI chatbots such as Grok, ChatGPT, and Claude will spread anti-Semitism. 69% of American Jews say they are concerned that information and misinformation shared by generative AI chatbots will lead to anti-Semitic incidents. And now, going on, the young American Jews experience with anti-Semitism. So these are young American adult Jewish people living in America. Nearly half say they were the personal target of anti-Semitism. That's 1 out of 2, compared to 28% for those 30 and over. 42% of American Jewish college students report experience anti-Semitism during their time on campus. Now, we remember back in 2024, right after the October 7th, that whole year, to be a Jew on a college campus was dangerous. I mean, and they were not even letting professors into the school grounds because they were Jewish. I think we lose sight of that sometimes. 1 in 4 American Jewish college students say they have felt or had been excluded from a group or an event on campus because they are Jewish. And then where the American general public stands. Now, just everyday people. 70% of U.S. adults say anti-Semitism is a problem in the U.S. today. Well, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. Why do they keep voting for these people? The majority, 63% of U.S. adults say anti-Semitism in the U.S. has increased since the Hamas terrorist attacks. 45% of U.S. adults reported personally seeing or hearing any anti-Semitic incidents in the last 12 months. Of these respondents, 74%, that's 3 out of 4, have seen or heard anti-Semitic incidents online or in social media. And of course, we see it with all the bloggers, So just with those statistics, Jacob, how do you feel right now? Is it things different since October 7th?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was a time for most of my life, I would have absolutely no qualms about wearing a Star David at the airport. Not a problem at all. Now I'm a little bit more careful,
Yeah.
and I could see what's happening. Hey, listen, it's just like every nation makes mistakes. Every nation, there's friendly fire incidents and all this type of stuff. But whatever mistake Israel does, the anti-Semites just latch onto it and they throw gasoline on the fire. I remember actually recently it was us too. Americans accidentally bombed it was supposed to be a headquarters of a Iranian military. Turned out to be, they changed that and it was a school. So
Yeah.
about 106 kids got killed. Well, it's terrible, but when that happens, but the difference is we're not doing it on purpose. We're aiming for the military. Same thing with Israel. We're aiming for the military. I wish if only Hamas had, on October 7th, had gone to these civilians surrounding near Gaza and gotten the civilians out. They said, listen, we're going to get out. They got them out safely. Then they bombed their buildings. If only that's the only thing that happened, this war would have been over the end of October 2023, So, but that's not what's going on. And you have to understand, listen, behind hatred, Satan is behind all hatred, but specifically with anti-Semitism, Jesus said that he would not return until my people say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, which is what you say to the Messiah. In other words, Jesus is not going to return, this is Matthew 23, until the nation of Israel recognizes Jesus as the Messiah. Now, if Satan can kill off all of my people, that means that Jesus does not return if there are no Jews to welcome him back. And then he keeps this realm, this earth. So that's the motivating factor behind this hatred. And that's why it's so wacky. I mean, everything Jews did, whatever is something wrong, Jews did it,
I guess the podcasters in Europe are blaming you guys for the fires.
Oh, yeah. Anything goes wrong.
It's like anything, they blame Israel for it all. Well, I mean, and just, we keep hearing these stories, but I thought I would share this one because this was just last week, this story broke. That is the Nazi drag queen. I don't know if you've seen this, this article here, but it is Cincinnati Pride welcomed Jews back after 2 fraught years. So they had told them they weren't welcome there, then featured a performer giving Hitler salutes beside signs saying Zionists do not belong. The Cincinnati Pride featured drag queen artist Judith Iscariot. That's anti-Christian too, right? As Schutzstaffel Sam, a deliberate reference to I guess that's the SS, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Who operated the concentration camp system and much of the Nazi regime's Holocaust. Iscariot fused Uncle Sam with Third Reich iconography, a stars and stripes suit, Reich-style cap, swastika armband, and gold boots. She later said the character represented the American Reich. For more than 20 minutes, this guy marched through the parade, repeatedly performing the Sieg Heil with a pointed finger on the main stage. Protesters carried signs reading, Zionism has no place at Pride. Guardians of pedophiles, and one day this country will wake up to his obituary. So, I mean, it's threatening violence, right? This guy raised a gold pistol and fired into Lady Liberty's head. As Liberty collapsed, Iscariot twerked over her body, stomped on it, and ended with another Nazi salute. And here's a picture of it. I mean, this is just sickening, this stuff that's happening. But again, we're seeing this combination of the alphabet soup mafia and, this anti-Israel pro-Palestinian movement. And it's really kind of strange because the two don't blend together at all.
No,
And so,
yeah.
what do you think of that?
It is bizarre because basically Israel is like so liberal that's practically a lot of people's religion, and then so they really sympathize with the underdog, and so they're more open to gay stuff. You go across the way, that's not the case. If you're in Hamas territory, even if you were a Hamas member or higher up, they would murder you if they found out that you're gay. So it's really, really weird that this is.
That's why I wonder if there's any truth to the gay Ayatollah, the son that is now supposedly, we call him cardboard Ayatollah, because nobody's seen or heard from him.
I don't know.
But and they say he's still alive, but we really don't know. But they say he's gay, and I don't know what kind of rumors is that. But to be a fundamental Shiite Muslim, I don't think they would quite allow that. But again, we're seeing this rise of DEI candidates. DSA candidates, and I know you follow a lot of this stuff, but. Again, meet the far left insurgents waging war on the Democrat establishment in the 2026 elections. And of course, many of them are Muslim, and they are, we just had Mamdani in New York, and you're from New York. And I understand that, like you said, a lot of Jewish, that aren't, believers or really practicing Jews, they usually vote Democratic, but are they shooting themselves in the foot by this, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's really obvious, and you've got a situation. Well, part of it, I think, is Stockholm syndrome, because New York got hit by mother, and this is kind of making nice to the tiger, and hoping that the tiger won't turn on you or eat somebody else. And that's basically what's going on behind the scenes. And, because we were in New York City during the attack, as you know. So it's really particularly heartbreaking to watch happen. But it's really strange, because this is a repeated, pattern where, like in Iran in 1979, the liberals and the leftists sided with the Muslim extremists, thinking that they were going to, again, pet the tiger, and the tiger will treat you nice. They were going to overthrow the government, and then they're going to have this coalition together. Well, you know what happened. Ayatollah started murdering off the liberals and their leftists, and so we're left with just the Ayatollah's government alone, the extreme Muslims government alone. So this is a pattern, but nobody seems to learn. They just think that this time we're going to be doing this right.
They try to, what is it? Iran came out and they said that all of those protesters that they killed were agents for Israel and America.
It's insane.
And it's like, it's pretty sad. But again, we have these far left candidates that are insurgents. It says DSA-backed candidates in Missouri, Michigan, and Wisconsin are riding momentum from socialist wins in North New York and Colorado. And so if you don't know what the Democrats, Socialists of America, you really should be paying attention, because they are literally taking over the Democrat Party. Just like we have the woke right and, in the MAGA that's causing division. Well, the Democrats are really in trouble right now, because, the old school Democrat, it no longer exists. They are actually trying to start an entire new world. They do not. It's not even compatible with our republic.
Well, and they sell the socialism as if it's from like Denmark or the Swedish nations. That's not what those are democracies that have very high taxation, but you have private property. The socialism that the Democrat socialists are talking about is communism, where the state owns the means of production. So they fool you with their language, but that's what they're after. And if you actually, listen to what they're saying, that's what they're actually the desire.
It's funny. He had the supermarket for there in New York, but they didn't want to say, well, how are you going to keep people from taking advantage of it? Well, we'll have them show an ID. Oh, better not say that, because then we'd have to have an ID to vote. But again, it's really kind of shocking to see this green-red alliance between the Marxist communists and the Islamists, and I don't know if you see it, but I think we should be very concerned, because we always talk about Gen Z, but people don't know that they'll be the first wave of Gen Alpha being able to vote in the 2028 election. And we see, they are on board with socialism. You've had multi-generations of this education from the college campuses. Yeah. And with the age of AI and TikTok, they've just been basically brainwashed.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. How do you feel? Do you see the possibility of a DSA candidate, getting in the White House?
Maybe not this time, but in the next decade, definitely. And people have no idea. And it's really strange because all the people from the communists, listen, my people, when they were running, whoever made it out of World War II, they weren't running towards the Soviet bloc. They were running towards democracy. Yeah. Even Germans I just read an article about Germans who were prisoners of war. They came to America. They used them as laborers for in America, American farms and stuff like that. Well, a lot of them stayed here. Yeah. And if you were a German at that time and you were going to be caught, you wanted to be caught by the West, not by the East, not by the Soviet. So, and people are they have no education in this matter. Yeah. I mean, they have no idea. Yeah.
Well, you offer people free stuff, they're going to take it. But they don't understand somebody has to pay for that. And I don't think just regular old capitalism is even taught in schools anymore. So, I see unless they can find a good candidate on the right, I think that the momentum. I always tell people it's going to be Bernie 2.0.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's AOC, it's going to be a candidate like that's going to win the Democrat nominee. Now, whether or not, the good news is we still have an electoral college, and there's still plenty of states that are not going to put up with that. Right. Of course, our state, we're toast, But anyway, it's just interesting to me to see these things. And so something to keep an eye on, but it is worrisome to see, that these candidates are extremely anti-Semitic. It's no longer we might be anti-Semitic in the heart, but on our platform we'll agree that Jews are okay. But these people, they're right on the front lines talking about genocide, and Mamdani wanted to arrest Netanyahu when he got off the plane next month. And I mean, that's just ridiculous.
And the way he phrases it, because they'll ask him, well, why Israel? Why you don't want an ethno-religious state, Israel? How about Saudi Arabia? How about all these? You got 23 countries who are ethno-Muslim, Arab, ethno-states. And I want them all to be non. Well, that's nonsense. That's not going to happen. You have a lot of other countries who are also ethno. Greece is Greek Orthodox. So the only one that they have a problem with is Israel. We couldn't survive. They didn't let us survive in Europe, and then the Arab countries kicked out about 850,000 Jews around the same time, 1940s. And so you got nowhere to go, and they're like, well, you can't have your own state. That's prejudice. Well, no, there's 2 million Arabs. You've been to Israel. Yeah. You see Arabs. Yeah, we sit down in coffee shops with Muslim Arabs, Christian Arabs. It's not a problem. There's no apartheid. What's apartheid? As soon as someone says to me there's apartheid in Israel, I know that they've never been to Israel. So.
Yeah, it's like people like Tucker Carlson that sits there and talks about how, to be a Jew in Israel, we're going on a mission trip in November to serve 500 to 1,000 Messianic youth, that have the freedom to have a conference, and we can go there and just to say that you can't be a Christian in Israel is ridiculous.
The only thing you can't do in Israel is you cannot, if you're an adult, you cannot share your faith with a minor without their parents' consent. Yeah. Other than that, which makes sense because you don't. Yeah. But other than that, you could, and if you did that in a Muslim country, if you shared your Jesus, if you talked about the Trinity in an Arab country, you could wind up going to prison. If you tell a Jewish person in Israel about the Trinity, they'll just kind of look at you and maybe you'll get a cup of coffee with them, and they'll say, no, you're wrong. You're completely wrong about that. But there's no legal.
Well,
at least
danger. You might get engaged in a long conversation with them, but you're not going to get.
You're not going to get hurt.
You're not going to get hung like they do in Saudi Arabia. Arabia.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that. Qatar, he talks about Qatar. Oh, there's a larger Christian population in Qatar. Well, Qatar, they're all slaves. They don't tell you that,
And in Qatar and a lot of these other nations, you could have Christian enclaves, but as long as you don't keep it to yourself. In other words, you can't talk about Jesus to a Muslim and try to get him to see that Jesus is the incarnate God or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a real switch and bait kind of situation.
Yeah, and this is one of their comments. Only socialism can solve decades of capitalist mismanagement in the U.S. Our newly elected leaders will fight for the working class, not for crumbs. Meaning that they're going to take the billionaires and millionaires and the people that worked hard to get rich and take all their money and give it out to everybody else. But again, that's And then the other thing we had this week that I don't know if you were aware of it, but you probably are. And that's Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan sign a joint defense deal in shadow of Iran war. And to me, this is kind of scary because Pakistan is a nuclear power.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I mean, basically, they were tested pretty quickly because the Houthis, I forget who they went after. I think it was Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And then all these, this whole pack they said, no, this only applies to nations. Now, when we got attacked in 9/11, then NATO stepped up and said, listen, one of us is attacked, we're all attacked. And they said, okay, we're going to fight with you against terrorism. There wasn't a nation that attacked us. But this thing kind of fell apart fast. So hopefully and Saudi Arabia is kind of interesting because it's in the scripture where they would say when the Gog-Magog wars go into effect, when Turkey is one of the actors in that, they'll say something like, "Oh, you guys have went into Israel for the goods, for the spoils of war." So apparently there's some kind of shift towards the end, but we never know. But this is interesting because everything is lining up with what Ezekiel said about the end times, and it's all lining up. You could see how everything is just going in that direction.
And it's these countries are Sunni Arabs, and so. They're not all Arabs, but they're Sunni in their religious belief. And of course, we know Iran is Shiite, and all of their proxies. So, they've been at war with each other since the 6th, 7th century. So it wouldn't surprise me. But now that you're bringing in a nuclear power into this, I mean, we've been able to keep Pakistan under our thumb for quite a while, but that's all starting to change, and so it shouldn't surprise us to see these geopolitical things, and like I've been telling people on this program for a long time, it's not by accident that all of the world is moving back over to the Middle East. We're seeing the Middle East being the center of all pretty much attention in the world.
And the ironic part about it is that when Zechariah wrote that all the nations are going to surround Jerusalem. Jerusalem was like, I'm going to say something but Rio Linda or something. It was a real no place. I mean, it was destroyed. It was gone. There was nothing to see. And yet now this is all the trajectories right there. You could see all the nations going after Jerusalem. You could see that it's the weighted stone that's giving everyone a hernia. And it's all happening. So, yeah.
And then, of course, this is interesting news that we keep hearing about, and that is the Board of Peace. The Gaza Board of Peace, influenced by Qatar and Turkey. Of course, this is an analysis from JNS, and of course, they say former Israeli security officials tell JNS Hamas's offer to place weapons under a new Palestinian committee is designed to help the terror group survive and rebuild. We always call the ceasefire time to re-own. This is when they're reloading, rearming. We know that from all of our history, especially in Gaza. But again, there's this Board of Peace that's led by Donald Trump and all these countries that came into it, where they're basically setting up a technocratic government in Gaza, which is pretty much no bueno. But now America is trying to force Israel into to pull out of Lebanon and to get back from the yellow line to pacify Hamas, who doesn't really want. They said, we'll give up some of our arms, and so there's this deal making that Israel will have none of it. And so this post from Israel Katz that says he reiterates his commitment in Lebanon. We will not withdraw from the security zones, not in Lebanon, not in Syria, and not in Gaza. We will continue to destroy all the terrorist infrastructure built here with Iranian funding. So I guess you probably see the same thing I do as far as Jewish people in Israel. They're not going to let October 7th happen again, are they?
Not if they could help it. And, and I mean, I hear other theories like, Israel allowed it, things like that, or they were part of the attack. I mean, just crazy, insane kind of theories. But look, you can never estimate human foibles, and overconfidence. The same thing, or something similar happened in October of 1973, where the Israelis got intelligence. They didn't believe it, and that there was going to be a surprise attack, and there was a surprise attack, and they didn't believe it because they got too big for their bridges. So I think something very similar happened here in this case too.
Yeah.
And I mean, the bottom line is it's just like Bill Clinton said that he was so disappointed when he had this deal. I mean, with everything that the Arab, the Palestinians were going to get even parts of Israel proper. And they had it all worked out. And at the end, Arafat said, no, they had like 97% of what they wanted. Yeah. And this goes back, this manifests itself through Islam, but it actually goes back to the old Abraham. The promise went to Isaac and then to Jacob, not to Ishmael and Esau. And then remember that Abraham also had 7 other sons from Keturah, his wife after Sarah died. And so this is all like a family feud. This is extended cousins feuding. And people don't realize that. And listen, if you look at what always gets to me is college students don't know these things. It's like a lot of these Arabia, Islam with Arab Muslims came in 635, 638 AD, and they took over that whole area. If you look at, they expanded all over the place, Northern Africa too, and the Levant. And so this was not something that everybody's just sitting there minding their own business. And that's why the Crusaders tried to come in and oust the colonizers, the Arab colonizers. Yeah. But college students don't know that. It's really frustrating.
And it's interesting. We went to a couple of years ago, Phyllis and I went to on a Turkey tour, and we went to Istanbul. And of course, they took us to the big blue mosque, and we went in there. And as we were leaving, they had all this propaganda. And I grabbed a couple. They have these. I wanted to grab a couple of little pamphlets, like "What is Islam?" And they had Islam completely painted as, that Muhammad was just trying to help the oppressed, and I'm just like, this is even their own history they're lying about.
They believe it too. They believe it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, anyway, before we get to a couple questions, we're going to take a couple questions and see how we can do. I have a new app that is working good to get the questions. So anyway, I just maybe get a quick input on how do you feel about the upcoming elections in Israel? Do you think the Likud party is in trouble, or?
I honestly don't know enough about it. I know that there's a lot of confidence. Listen, Netanyahu is less popular in Israel than he is in the United States, and again, this goes back to conservative, liberal kind of workings too, and also the fact that Netanyahu's been in there for so long. People just don't like that kind of concentration of power. So I don't know if the accusations against him are like trumped up, the pun intended, pun unintended. But or is it real? But I think people have a lot of confidence in him as far as being a wartime prime minister. So that's my 2 cents. It's literally worth 2 cents. I don't know enough about it.
Well, the first question we have is from Asset Ministries, and it's, do you see anti-Semitism as the tool God is using to bring the Jews back to the homeland?
Well, I mean, according to the scripture, you have that will be part of the tool, and that's how Satan's going to work. That will happen. A lot of more Jews will come to Israel. Remember, this is the return now is the third return in the line of 3. So this is the third return. There's going to be another exile in the middle of the tribulation.
Yeah.
And did I do that right? The second return now, and then there's going to be an exile and another return. The third return will be the final one after the tribulation, exile, and then return. And that's when, at the end of the tribulation, is when my people say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." They recognize Jesus as the Messiah, and then God brings them back to Israel after that return. So definitely God is using these anti-Semitic situation
them back.
That's part of it, I think. Yeah.
And some people, though, a lot of people believe that in order for the tribulation to happen, that almost all the Jews have to be back in Israel, and I don't think that's really true.
I don't know if it's scriptural, but definitely there's going to be. Well, Israel itself had to come back as a nation.
Yes.
And you could see that in verses in Zephaniah chapter 2. It talks about, it calls Israel shameless nation, meaning they're in unbelief. And it says that they come back to the land, they regather before the tribulation, very specifically. You could read that, that's Zechariah chapter 2, and you could read that in there. So it's definitely a part of the plan. And that's part of what Christians don't understand a lot of times. They're like, well, Jews don't believe, and they're reading the final return when they do believe, but they don't realize there's other scriptures that also talk about them returning in disbelief, and that's what we have now.
Yeah. Cool. And then Ghoster 7 said, Brother Jacob, Trump's son-in-law and cohorts, I guess that would be Witkoff's family, what is the general feeling of the Christians and people in Israel about those guys? So like, Jared Kushner and, Steve Witkoff and those guys.
Yeah, I don't know what the general, I know that Israelis are afraid that with all good intention that they'll be sold out, and because it's really easy to be on this side. Think of what you felt like during 9/11, the aftermath of 9/11. I remember going in and we weren't sure if there were going to be other people lobbing grenades. We have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, Israelis feel more like that with being surrounded by all these enemies who sworn to destroy them. And so I don't know if they could wind up becoming dupes and just saying, hey, let's do this peace deal. Let's get peace. What do they call it? That peace thing in Gaza.
Let's peace and
Yeah. But let's set it up so that the Gazans can. Well, I don't know what to do. Quite frankly, I mean, I have no idea. This is proven. It's like, hey, what if Israel pulled out and allowed Gaza to have its own independence? Well, they did that. Look what happened. And remember, Ariel Sharon did that, and he was a hardliner, but he did it, and then we found out. And by the way, Israel received, after 2005, when they withdrew, they received about 20,000 missiles before, rockets, I should say, before October 7th.
Yeah.
20,000. So if you want to know what, into civilian populations. So we're not talking about, now I feel bad, there's got to be some Gazans who kind of like innocent Germans who didn't like Hitler. Yeah. I'm sure there are some Gazans like that who don't like Hamas and would rather live with peace. But the stronger and the majority and the ones who have control are the ones who want to destroy Israel. So it's definitely a problem. And again, it's fulfilling Scripture, and the trajectory is there. You could clearly see it now.
Well, I can imagine they feel a lot better about those guys than they would with Kamala Harris. So,
well, that's true. Yeah. I guarantee. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Well, I just saw a news story where we are still blessing Israel. People don't understand that we are still giving Israel everything they need. They just got a couple big shipments on boat of the bulldozers they needed and a lot of that heavy equipment that they need to do ground stuff. And those were all the things that Biden had held back. And so we're still letting them have the stuff that they need and want. Yeah, and another thing people need to know, Israel pays for that stuff.
Oh, that's right.
They try to say, well, we shouldn't be giving them stuff. Well, they, unlike, these other countries around there that we give stuff to, they actually pay for it.
Yeah, you could look it up. These days you could do chat, you could look it up and see the list of countries that get aid from America. Now, whatever aid Israel gets, it actually buys the military equipment and other equipment from American companies. That's the deal. So it's not like many other countries, that's not the case. Yeah. But Israel does have to do that. And they're fine with it. And recently it looks like they're going to start becoming more independent because of the situation that's changing in America.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they'll wind up producing their own. And countries buy from them. You know, this is like Thieves, Tramps, and Thieves. Remember that song?
Yeah.
You know, in the night they come, Greece buys from Israel, and all these countries like, and then they buy their weapons from them,
I guess it didn't... that Israel just got a submarine from Germany.
It looks, that's right. Yeah,
a really high-tech one, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, this question's from Pam Banks, and I think we kind of covered this, but she's asking, are you seeing more Jews move to Israel, especially from New York City? Are you seeing any exodus from New York?
I haven't noticed. I mean, there's been, I think in general, I think people are going to move out just for taxes' sake and stuff like that. But I haven't seen any big time moves to Israel, making Aliyah or anything like that. But I may be wrong about that, and so.
And then Vin Dog, my good friend Vinny, he is asking, why is it that our Jewish friends vote for DSA extremists? So
I think basically it's a con job that the Democrats have given. They've convinced people that the Republicans are evil, they're only for big business, and the Democrats are for the little guy, and they're going to help you. And it's a veneer because it's like, you could see this in history. It's not exactly pan out. But having said that, look, they do some good. I mean, the Social Security or Medicaid, you want to expand it, then you're going to break the country. I mean, it's but the idea behind it is that the Democrats, they believe that the Democrats are for the little guy, and so they'll vote more for Democrats. They'll buy into that.
Yeah.
So,
and like I said, the propaganda from what Islam does is they come in as being the champion for the oppressor, and so it fits right into Marxism. So the two of them together have this powerhouse, and we're talking about. You have to remember that Jews, just like Americans that are unbelievers, that are raised in liberal environments, they're going to vote for Democrat socialism just says the quiet part out loud. It's what left politics have always wanted in America, and so they're just basically, but they're saying it out loud now instead of hiding behind like, oh yeah, we're for a closed border, and but they're just saying that to get into office. What isn't it when Jerry Brown was running for his third term, and they had all those old videos that came up beforehand with them on TV saying, "Oh yeah, we tell people what they want to hear, and we're only doing it to get into office," and they still voted for him. So again. And then finally, I've got another one from Asset Ministries here that says, do you feel Israel finishing the job with Iran? Do you see Israel finishing the job with Iran if the U.S. doesn't?
Yeah, I don't know how they can do it. The main thing with Iran is that it's landlocked in a way that, like the Caspian Sea is not an international waterway, and Russia could supply it with all the weapons and has been. So I see this as an ongoing kind of thing. I don't know when. I asked the Lord if I could live until Turkey and Iran, and if it's Russia, are on land their boots on the northern mountains of Israel, and God destroyed. The IDF doesn't destroy them like Sennacherib. God destroys them. Yeah. So if I'd like to live and see that day, and that's what's going to take. I mean, no one can destroy Israel, not because of who we are, but because of who God is. It has nothing to do with us. It's just like our own personal salvation. No one has anything to boast about. It's who God is. And so with Israel, God chose Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that's it. They're locked in. And despite ourselves many times, and we don't have the best history. But then again, if God chose any other nation, would they have had a better history? I don't think so, because we're all sinners. That's the whole point. But God has locked himself in. So
and like we just finished the book of Esther last Wednesday, and I talked about that, about how God has always been the one that has delivered Israel. They have they've had to engage in the fight, but God is the one who we see stories like that in all the wars that even recently Israel's had.
And I want to make a point also, because you're talking about Democrats and voting for sometimes anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish, practically Jewish Democrats vote. And the point I want to make is that when Mordecai told Esther that she has to act, and if she doesn't, then her own family would be destroyed.
Yeah.
That is the same blessings and curses that God told Abraham. So in
Yep.
other words, Jewish people are not exempt from blessing Israel, you'll be blessed, and curse Israel, you'll be cursed. Her family would have been destroyed, and who
Yep.
knows if you're here for a time like this. So we're not exempt from that
Yep.
condition.
Yeah, I love that. What I really love about those two verses in chapter 4 of Esther about, Mordecai saying, don't think, deliverance from the Jews will come,
Right.
but who knows if you haven't been brought into the kingdom for such a time as that.
Yeah.
And I brought up that it's an awesome place where we see God's providence and sovereignty, but man's free will and choice kissing together right there.
Yeah, it is true. Yep.
People try to argue one way or the other, but no, Mordecai's letting her know that, hey, God is sovereign. We will be delivered. The promises are there. They're not there. God will fulfill his promise with Israel, but yet you have an opportunity to be the vessel that God uses to bring about his plan. And that's the same for all of us,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We
Jew
have
and
choices
Gentile.
to make every day, whether we're going to serve him or not. Well, I think that's pretty much it. I don't any more questions. That was the last one, number 5. So thank you, Kimberly. The app does work a lot better than me trying to scroll through all of the chat on YouTube. But again, I want to thank all of you for watching today. I really appreciate the input. And as we continue we'll keep in touch with Jacob, and we'll have him on again sometime. Maybe we'll bounce off some other stuff.
Sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much.
Well, anyway, you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see some of you on Sunday. So have a blessed one.
All right. That wasn't too painful.
Nope.